Yo, what is up guys? So we are going to be going over the top 10 cards for competitive, aka winning in Yu-Gi-Oh! These are the most meta of cards. This is not my personal opinion, these are just facts, these are via hard stats. So these are the cards that see the most play. Now this is not for everything, again it's just for competitive, because if you looked at like just cards in general, I'm pretty sure Trickstar Light Stage would probably be at like the #1 spot for the most played card. But that's just because like everyone plays Trickstar. I don't know why. About 50% of the time I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I go online and try to play a game, it's just someone playing Trickstars. But anyways, yeah, like you said, this is a hard stat, so I'll explain some of the choices, but the choices aren't because of my decision, because these are just hard stats. I'll explain why I think a lot of people are playing some of these cards. Now, this is actually the number 10 spot. Well, not this card, but it's actually Harpy's Feather Duster. However, it is banned in the TCG, so we can't even use it. But I just wanted to use this as a placeholder. So technically, Harpy's Feather Duster is at the number 10 spot, but because we cannot use it in the TCG, unless, of course, we get it on the next ban list, which hopefully is coming out soon. But anyways, yeah, just want to mention that as a quick little note. So this is technically number 11, but again, I included it as a number 10 spot because we don't have Harpy's Feather Duster in the TCG. So Infinite Transients over here. It's a newer card, so I'm going to go over some of the effects, and I'll get into my explanations if you guys want to know why. But anyways, Infinite Transients. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls that has its effects negated until the end of this turn. If this card is activated while it was set, negate the effects of other spell and trap cards in this card's column this turn. If you control no cards, you get to activate this card from your hand. So that's actually really cool. It lets you kind of go into your play when your opponent goes first and you have to break their board. Kind of similar to some of the other cards that we're going to be talking about. I just find Chalice to be a more versatile card, but that card does not see very much play. But this is also a newer card, and also it's a trap card. But for the most part, I still think that Chalice almost gets the job done as well as this card. If you might not have access to, let's say, for example, you don't have this card. Yeah, it can negate stuff in the same column. I find that to be relevant, maybe like maybe 20% of the time you're able to like get the double. It has some potential there. I mean, there's that aspect of the card, but majority of the time it's just like I'm going to negate an effect, which obviously again Chalice can kind of do the same thing, and you can activate it really fast. But anyways, next up, this is at our number 9 spot at Typhoon, which is actually interesting. Don't get me wrong, Twin Twister still sees some play, but it's like way below on this list as far as, well, it's not even on the top 10. But anyways, Typhoon lets you target a face-up spell and trap card on the field and destroy it. But if your opponent controls 2 or more spell and trap cards and you control no spell and trap cards, you get to activate this card from your hand. Obviously, it's pretty good against a lot of different things like, you know, pendulums, anything that obviously sets a ton. It almost gets the job done as much as Twin Twisters. However, some archetypes actually prefer Twin Twisters simply because you're able to discard that card because you want that card in the graveyard. So just keep that in mind as well. Obviously, if you go first, it still has some potential, but majority of the time, again, it's in that aspect. A lot of these cards that we're going to be mentioning are like really good when your opponent goes first and you happen to have a response to their play. That's just kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes as far as like, you know, as meta shifts. But next up, this is another newer card, Designator from the Grave. So it's a quick play spell card that says target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. If you do, monsters with the same name as that banished monster have their effects negated until the end of the next turn. That's actually pretty big. It stops a lot of potential plays that your opponent could like, maybe disrupt your plays with, because of course you're getting rid of, you know, another card, and potentially for like an additional turn you have access to just stopping what they can do. Now, again, I'm going to go over some cards maybe if you don't happen to have some of these cards that we're going to be talking about, or, you know, once this card comes out in the TCG, if it's maybe too expensive. Secret Rare, you know. DD Crow is probably like the best card that's as similar as Designator from the Grave, which is actually a card that I think a lot of people have access to. It's probably like 10 cents. So, yeah, DD Crow is pretty good. The one thing that I like with DD Crow is you can activate it, you know, obviously during either player's turn. With this, it is a quick play, so you can technically activate it during either player's turn. However, you would have to set it. If it had that effect where you could activate it from your hand during your opponent's turn, then I would think it would be much better. But again, it's for that lingering effect that obviously DD Crow does not have. Next up, Tron Needle Fiber. This is actually a card that a lot of people are hitting. Well, there's a lot of cards that you can hit with Ghost Reaper, but this card is like really important for a lot of different decks because, well, a lot of these decks, they only have like room for a certain amount of cards, depending on what card it is in their extra deck. But Needle Fiber is a really strong card for any deck. It's because Zephyrs are really popular and the Yang Zings can just like make this really fast, and obviously being able to just special summon a tuner. Really good stuff indeed. And then also you can banish this card and special summon one tuner synchro monster from your extra deck as like the whole quick effect thing. It's pretty strong. I like it. It's a great card in any deck that likes to synchro summon. But yeah, it's kind of just one of those cards where, again, people are side decking it as well. Ghost Reaper can hit a lot of different things, and this is a very key card. It's kind of like how you could side deck the Ghost Reaper. Obviously, hitting Dante is pretty good against Burning Abyss. But anyways, yeah, this card just is seeing a lot of play in just a lot of different decks. They're just kind of splashing it in. Well, it's more so, again, for this, but there are people that just try to make that card viable anyways. Next up, Solemn Strike. Really nothing new with this card, and it's a pretty good effect. Now, going back to this card, the other, like, bonus that you get with Designator from the Grave is that Solemn Strike obviously cannot stop this, whereas it could stop DD Crow. But overall, I mean, Solemn Strike is going to be relevant for quite a long time. And in fact, I don't think this card has actually dropped out of like the top 10 spot for quite some time. Next up, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now, at first I was thinking, okay, everyone's just side decking 3 copies, that's why the number of this is so high and competitive. But no, people are main decking multiple copies, and I guess I'll cite my source down below if you guys want to like check out like a bunch of the deck lists. There's nothing really like too crazy innovative that has came out recently in the game. It's pretty much been like the same thing. There's a bunch of Zephyrs. There's also some people playing plants, and again, like, this card's really important for that deck, and if you get rid of it, it can kind of become a problem for that, but it's just more so like hand traps are being maxed out on like every single deck. There's also a Gyoki deck. It didn't take first place. Well, I wish the Gyoki deck took first place, but yeah, I'm just like checking out the stuff. There's still like Trick Stars, but that's just a popular deck in general. Also, technically, this card could work well against Pendulum Magicians. If you happen to you know, side deck the right cards. It depends what build they're playing, because I've seen some builds that definitely do go for the extra, but keep in mind, it's just you banish all cards in the extra, which can still be the face of Pendulums. Not that people do that, but I just wanted to give you guys that knowledge there. But yeah, this card, it's just seeing so much play, even in the main deck, which it kind of surprises me, because there's so many like decks that you have to like counter. But it is a tuner, so it can technically still work with, of course, some decks, depending on what you're playing. You know, Cypher Omega is still a really good card. Next up, though, Struggling Battle at our number 4 spot. So Struggling Battle is definitely, again, going back to like how Yu-Gi-Oh has going and seeing how the game has definitely shifted, where like you got to get rid of your opponent's stuff like turn 1, where you got to stop them from going off. And again, like this card's even good going second too. Again, this is a card where I mentioned before, like going second, they're just better. You know, like these 2 cards are just definitely better going second. But with Struggling Battle, it's for when your opponent makes a board. I'm sure you guys know the effect of this card. But it just makes it so if your opponent makes a huge board and there's like, break my board, and then you just activate this 1 card, and kind of, you lose your turn, basically, because you don't want to play any cards. But it kind of resets the duel. Almost reminds me a little bit of Fiber Draw, although not as OP. But it definitely can just win you the game. Like, it's not a very fair card. I guess I was talking about this last night with some of my people via the live stream. We were talking about Struggling Battle. But the thing is like, even though a lot of people will argue that this card is like so dumb, it's broken, it's OP, at the same time, when you open up with a board that's like, it can't be broken, like, what else do you do? Like, maybe you can try to kaiju it, but with the exception of kaijus, like, that only gets rid of 1 monster. Sometimes when the co-links get too crazy, if you guys have not seen the Troy Mares, this archetype is definitely going to be a deck that's like, break my board. But if you happen to activate this, because this does not target them and it's not destroying them by a card effect, you can definitely wreck this deck. Troy Mares will just lose to this card. And this card's very expensive. Last time I checked, it was like 40-50 bucks. So I still think this card would be relevant. A lot of people want this card hit. You guys let me know if you guys feel like Struggling Battle should be hit. like, I'm kind of like half and half with this card, because yeah, it definitely is OP, but at the same time, you've already committed to that board that you've made. You basically have made a board that says, like, I'm winning the game, and their opponent just activates one card. It just doesn't feel like it's skillful, is what a lot of people say, but, I mean, that's just part of card games sometimes, you know, like, the luck of the draw. But, yeah, Struggling Battle is definitely a controversial card, and a lot of people don't like it, but at the same time, I can understand the frustration with dealing with big boards. But next up, we have at number 3, Ghost Ogre, which actually did surprise me. A lot of people are, again, just maxing out on hand traps. This is like, you gotta play, like, maxed out hand traps. I remember when I was doing that a while back during, like, Plant Era, and it's just because you need it. Now, not only does this card get rid of, like, field spells, obviously, different pendulum decks can definitely get wrecked by this card as well, but this card definitely just helps out, and plus it's another tuner, so it just has access to just more options for different things. Because keep in mind though, this card can actually be on the field because where it say during either player's turn, a spell trap or effect is already activated. You can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, so you can actually technically get it out and still get its effect. And plus it's a tuner, so obviously it has potential for synchros. And then Ash Blossom, it just stops your opponent from making plays. Pretty straightforward, very expensive card. Again, a lot of these cards are just like a really high price, except for like, well, Mexi is still kind of pricey depending on the rarity that you want. But, I mean, it's just like the hand traps. Nothing has really changed. I think Max C, hopefully it'll go to multiple copies in the TCGs, what a lot of people are saying. Some people do like this card at 1, but I feel like when you, like, open up with Max C, it gives you such a huge advantage against certain decks, because, like, every deck special summons at this point for the most part. Barrier statues are not exactly the most meta of things, and once in a while that deck does top. You'll see it once in a while, but for the most part, Maxi is just great against every single deck in the meta of this game. I can't think of one deck, maybe with the exception of Trickstars, that wouldn't like just straight up lose to Max C, like as far as like advantage goes. Like you're minimum losing a few cards due to Max C. Like if they go Grinder Golem, and there's just so many plays with Max C that just open up the door. And who knows, maybe Grinder Golem will be hit in the TCG, depending on what we get when we get the new list. But anyways, guys, like I said, these are the top 10 guards. You guys can tell me what you think about this list. Keep in mind, this is not my personal list. This is like a fact. This is the number of cards people are playing, so you can't argue that this is the top 10. Okay, what I'm saying is that let me know if you guys feel like that there's cards that people should have played, or you guys think that definitely should have been on this list, but I guess people just didn't play them. Again, we're only considering competitive Yu-Gi-Oh decks for this list, so keep that in mind. Like I said, if we're doing casual, I'm pretty sure this card would be at the #1 spot, because, again, half the time I queue up into ranked, or not ranked, but just queue up into Yu-Gi-Oh games, it's always Trickstars. Am I right, though? Like, it seriously is, like, just the deck that people love. I don't know. It's probably because of the artwork. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the vid. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the meta of Yu-Gi-Oh! And fidget spinner videos.